Hello, Mr. James. If I
Yes,
haven't said
sir.
that already, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day for this interview. And I'd also already, like I've already said, get a shout out to my mentor, Deb Weiner, here for helping me. And for this interview, I'll be asking you some questions based on ACCA's initiatives and priorities. So, what may I begin?
Please.
All right. So I was reading on the workforce section of ACCA's website that it is a top priority for the association to help fill in the labor gap, and that ACCA provides resources to help attract and retain workers. So, could you share why it's difficult for contractors to find skillful workers, and why HVAC companies should consider requesting workforce resources from ACCA?
Sure. Well, do you want me to back up and tell you about Akka first? Is that helpful would you prefer that before I kind of get into
Sure.
the workforce?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So Akka, Air Conditioning Contractors of America, we've got a long, almost 100-year history, depending who you talk to, but our roots date back when the manufacturers of HVAC equipment, the distributors and contractors all kind of worked under one kind of combined effort. Over the years, we split off and separated. So air conditioning, ACCA, as we refer to ourselves, or ACCA, is made up of just shy of 3,000 member companies, and those contractors that run those companies are doing over half the heating, air conditioning, and refrigeration work in the U.S. Many of our members also do other work as well into what we refer to as the skilled trades. They're in the plumbing space. They're in electrical. They've been in other things that are oftentimes more regulated than heating, air conditioning, and refrigeration. And when I say regulated, we have 17 states in the country that do not have a license requirement to be an HVAC contractor, despite HVAC being the largest consumer of energy in our country. And as we were reminded during COVID, air quality really matters to us. So there's been a lot of funding that ACCA has worked on from at the federal level to provide funding to improve air quality in schools and make other improvements. And that's really what we're known for. So that 100-year history, really the core mission of ACCA has been really to how to do things the correct way. And then to get to your actual question that you ask about workforce. So skilled labor is a challenge that our country has been facing for years as being the graying of America, and people have been kind of on the front lines has kind of exacerbated that. And then COVID, added even more kind of challenges to that if people, haven't returned back to the workforce as we had, but we were already struggling with getting people interested in what we refer to as a skilled trade. So the number one limiting factor for our members of servicing people's homes, putting new products in, and the products are heating, air conditioning, refrigeration. So that's the units in your house, units in your apartments. Those are the commercial buildings you're in. They're installing, servicing, maintaining that equipment, and then like I said, they get into other space as well. But the workforce challenges have been an ongoing challenge that's been exacerbated, and it's one there's no kind of end in sight. We're working on prioritizing funding for in-demand jobs, so our industry falls into that. We want to make sure that trade schools and other schools are making sure that they're trying to fill those needs. We're working for them to improve their curriculum. We're working to level the playing field for people that want to enter the skilled trades where it's just as advantageous for them or family parents to save for going into the skilled trades as it is to go to a traditional four-year college. And that hasn't been the case. Something as basic as the 529, Virginia has a great one, is a saving mechanism where people can save pre-tax for their kids' education. That didn't allow for skilled trades. So that's something ACCA has been on the front lines of facing, but we hadn't made a dent in the challenge that's out there. And a lot of our things, I read an interesting report that came out just recently of the challenges that are out there, and a lot of these it's a marketing opportunity for us, but more importantly our members to be out there sharing what great opportunities this is for someone to enter into this industry. And they don't have to be an owner. They can work in the field and do really well depending where you are in the country. These are really great jobs that you can't outsource, which is, as we've seen in our country, has been a real challenge. So there's the longest answer ever for a short question.
Could I actually ask one question to piggyback off of it? So Bart,
Sure.
what is the anticipated salary for someone who's just starting out in HVAC? So let's say they don't go to college, they're going into an apprenticeship program,
right,
and they get their first job as an HVAC tech.
It very much depends on the market you're in, but I think a safe answer to that is $50,000 for someone to make, and it's nothing for people to make, $100,000 or more in this industry as a technician, as your knowledge increases and your efficiency that comes from that. But it's really reasonable for that. I mean, my father-in-law is one of our members. He's in Shreveport, Louisiana, in a pretty depressed market, and it's nothing for his guys to make $100,000 a year.
Okay. All right. So for my second part of these questions, could you discuss about the EPA standards on the refillable cylinder ban, and could you also discuss what Akka is doing in response?
Sure. Well, so I'll back up a minute. So refrigerant is the kind of chemical component that under pressure. So when you use a compressor to create refrigeration, whether it's your heating and air conditioning system, and it works the same way for heat as well. You just kind of reverse the process, but it's chemicals, and our industry is transitioning to what's referred to as flammable or slightly flammable chemicals. But now they use traditional refrigerants as R410 and R22. And there's different variations, but those are kind of the go-to in the residential marketplace. But those are carried in, they being the contractor, the technician, get that from their distributing, their source, usually their local distributor. They'll buy refrigerant. It's sold in jugs. The jugs are usually a 30-pound. There's other if you're doing a large job, but depending on the system, refrigerant is there, and there's a transition happening in the marketplace that opened the door through a piece of legislation that was passed by Congress and signed by the president. It's called the AIM Act. The AIM Act was signed by President Trump, and it was to help address climate change issues regarding the refrigerants that are used. They're ozone depleting, they high HFCs, and also we're transitioning to a new type of refrigerant. And part of that opened the door for EPA to believe that they had the opportunity to do away with disposable cylinders. So the cylinder, the refrigerant would come out. I'm holding up my hand like it's, I'm explaining something to you, but it's a metal jug, and it holds this refrigerant in it. And then there's also a reusable cylinder that's used for recovery of the refrigerant. Because again, if people are doing it, the technician's doing things right, they don't want this to go into the atmosphere because it's bad for us. So the refillable cylinders, EPA saw an opportunity for them to do away with that, or to require everyone to not use a disposable cylinder, to move to both refillable for the new refrigerant as well as reclaiming refrigerant. And this was something. So let's say the average jug weighs 30 pounds. The refillable cylinder that you would go back and get recharged would have challenging cost associated with that for the contractor to have multiple cylinders they probably had to pay for, as well as additional weight, because the cylinders are much more robust because they're used time after time. So let's just say that cylinder by itself empty weighs 20 pounds, then you'd have the full charge of 30 pounds. So now you're at 50 pounds, and someone's lugging this up and down an attic, or in and out of their van, or depending where they're going. So this was just one more challenge. It kind of all gets back to the workforce. You want to make things easier for people. You want to take care of your employees. They're your number one asset. So this is one that we and our members viewed as a challenge that we didn't think was right. First of all, we thought EPA had overstepped their authority by doing this, because the AIM Act was about opening the door for the new refrigerants, not for them to get into how that's carried. And we've got an alert going on where we're asking our members their employees to weigh in with EPA, but more importantly, Congress, because again, Congress was the one that passed legislation to make this transition that EPA thought gave them the authority for this.
Is there an end in sight regarding the EPA and what we're doing on behalf of the refillable cylinder ban?
It's become a legal battle. We're part of a lawsuit with a couple of other groups, and we just got the brief back from EPA. What's today? Is today Tuesday? Monday? Is today Monday? Tuesday. Thank you. We got back in, I think, Friday evening. I've been back and forth with the attorney, with Stephen, a couple times. We're still kind of dissecting their take on it, but the short of it from my read is they think they have the authority. No surprise. So we're going to move forward to a court. We think we've picked a good jurisdiction that'll be sympathetic to us. So we hope by the end of the year this will kind of be duked out, and we'll put them back in their place, and we'll be able to move forward with this option. Oddly enough, one of our partners in this is the lead producer of both the refillable cylinders as well as the disposable cylinders. So our partner in this is Worthington, which is an Ohio-based company. And so, you can speculate on kind of the desire of them too. That would be a huge cost to up your production on the number of refillable cylinders, but also be kind of a limiting economic factor, I'm sure, on, doing away or vastly limiting the number of cylinders that are disposable. But those cylinders are used in other industries as well. Think of a helium tank. If you're buying one of those to fill a balloon, it's similar, and I suspect it's probably made by Worthington. I think they've got the market share on that, but this one caught them off guard too. They've been in this space for a long time, so it's kind of interesting to connect with other industries and see our standpoints from a workforce standpoint. Theirs is on a cost standpoint and ramping up and having a timeline that's not even viable to meet the needs that EPA is trying to establish, which is about par for the course on how most regulations and things work. And that's really where ACCA earns its keep, is being that voice for the contractor on this. So again, another really long-winded answer for you and all.
So I remember reading through the state licensing requirements, and these requirements make having a license function more as like a tax than an actual license, because it forces fees to be paid so that the businesses can be maintained. And my question is, why aren't all states requiring contractors to hold licenses? And does Akka think that all states should require it?
Man, you're the one who read it. You're it. You're the only one. I'm joking with you. So this is me pulling your leg, but you're using my words, which I always love to hear back. Those are kind of way I took a look at this when I started at ACCA and realized this, and we're still kind of dissecting what's happened at the state level. And I mentioned when we were kind of getting to know each other the first of the call, but worth repeating here for your interview, is that 17 states don't have a license requirement to be a heating and air conditioning contractor. Heating and air conditioning and refrigeration are the largest consumer of energy in our entire country. So if we wanted to, address, the impacts of energy consumption from a climate change, global efficiency, energy consumption standpoint, we're the right place. So EPA, and NIST, so another government agency, National Institute of Standards and Technology, worked together at our bequest to do a report. That report looked at the installation and the correct installation of HVAC equipment. So what we learned from their research was that in residential and light commercials, in the marketplace for the installation of that equipment, both in brand new construction and existing construction, is the installations, half of those aren't done to the minimum requirements, on average losing 40% of the energy efficiency. So that's why we want we want to stop the race to the bottom, and right now there is, and it's getting worse as there's more shortages of equipment, longer lead times to do the work, increased pricing. Every time you look, I just saw another one today on commercial HVAC equipment where a 12% increase. So this is the most expensive purchase as a homeowner that you're going to make outside the purchase of the home itself. So think of that. And now the lifespan's gotten shorter for lots of different reasons, but a lot of it has to do with the workforce challenges we hit on. We don't have skilled workers to do the job correctly, so your system's working harder. It was probably the rule of thumb from what NIST from that report showed that the average system is twice the size it needs to be, and the ductwork is half the size. So you've got this big system that's pushing, a big volume of air through a small straw. And that happens from contractors not knowing what they're doing and, builders not giving them the space they need to work with. But it has to do with states not caring. Well, they viewed HVAC for far too long as a luxury or a comfort item where they looked at plumbing and electrical. You have code officials there that actually know what to look like and care, and that's not the case in HVAC. We offer free training to code officials, and very few of them ever take us up on that. Not to whine, but that's part of our job is trying to make things easier, and this is why we need meaningful license requirements at the state that are enforced. And we need to have continuing education requirements because this industry is constantly changing. Right now, if you were a consumer out there, you would be led to believe that heat pumps are brand new technology. That is not the case. It's been around for decades. But you would think under the current administration, what Congress is doing and all, and some of the crazy proposals I've seen, you would think that's brand new technology. And it has been around. It's good stuff. But also, we've got challenges with our grid because heat pumps, as we saw in the freezes across the South, we're not ready for that from a grid standpoint. But anyway, so that's back on why we need a state license. We need to have it meaningful. We need to have meaningful enforcement, which is a real challenge in this industry. I'll shine a little more light on that. So California. Many of us think of California as kind of the leading edge on kind of environmental protections and things they're doing. And I truly believe they're well-intentioned, but sometimes I believe their well-intentioned is about the headline versus the actual outcome. So you've got some powerful legislators there at the state level that have been on the cutting edge, raising the efficiencies of equipment, but yet they don't do anything for enforcement. So every existing and new installation of heating and air conditioning equipment requires a permit to be pulled. California, and I'm being very generous, has a less than 10% compliance. So over 90% of their installations, no one's looking at how it's done. So it's not just about a license, it's about enforcement of it. And you got to have people that care. And we're blessed to have, not all of our members are perfect, or many of them are far from it, but darn it, they try, and they're very proud in the fact that they pull permits and they're trying to do things the right way. And this is why we should all, as taxpayers, expect more from what's being done, because, you're going to pay for that. When every time they raise the efficiency requirements for you as the consumer, and the contractor has to follow that, they're doing it the right way, and you're not getting what you're paying for, you're shortening the lifespan of that really expensive piece of equipment. You're not getting the air quality in your home to look after you and your family or your, associates in your business. And, it's just it's a problem that really needs a spotlight shined on it. And it's a shame that no one, that very few people are paying attention. Again, I hope that's a good outcome out of COVID. It seems to kind of, built the head of steam, and it's letting off pretty quickly right now. So hopefully that'll pick back up. I'm not sure what the right answer is for it, but that's what we continually work on every day at ACCA.
Okay, and I think you initially touched on this about this question, but I'll ask it anyway. What does Akka do to determine the standards for quality installation, and how do they educate contractors on? How do they educate contractors on quality standards? Yeah.
Sure. Well, it's a never-ending process. The process is always evolving, and it's us working with our manufacturer partners on the new products that they innovate to make sure they're installed correctly. Our job at ACCA is to be kind of agnostic when it comes to a brand of equipment. We're blessed to have lots of corporate partners that, produce some great products under lots of different names, but all of them want to have someone tied just to them on how they train you and educate you. We want our folks to be able to go into any home and know the right way to do stuff for any piece of equipment. And that's where, we develop the standards over the years and continue the process. And that process is kind of regulated through ANSI. So ANSI is a certifying body that we put forward our work and recommendations, and they verify we did that, and that's done through a peer process. So those manufacturers and others provide input. We gather all that together, and through some really smart people, update the standards that we have, create new ones that get recognized, and then we work to make sure people have access to those, through trainings at technical schools and private trainings, as well as a member benefit of ACCA, and then ultimately work to get those into the codes so people know the right way, and hopefully they're being forced, but that requires good code officials to follow it. But then you're blessed to have some really good contractors. So if anyone's listening to this, or you're writing your notes, it's about hiring a contractor that pulls a permit. If they pull a permit, they're proud of their work and they're doing things the right way. If they offer you an opportunity not to do it, run as fast as you can away from them. And educate yourself as a consumer. Educate yourself on the lifespan of equipment. Know that there's people that do follow standards, and know that there's correct sizing of the piece of equipment. They take into calculations the amount of shade from trees, and whether or not you have new windows in your home, and other things that all go into that. And then they look at the sizing of ductwork. So we have the sizing of that. So it's the sizing of equipment, sizing of that, and we also have it on the commercial side. So there's a lot of standards that we've developed over the years, but all of it comes down to making sure things are done the correct way, and it's done no matter what piece of equipment is out there, and the type of installation that's there. There's a lot of tough issues out there, and as I think I mentioned earlier, there's a true race to the bottom, and the consumers lend themselves to that, with over 90% of installations happen at the point of breakdown. So you're over a barrel as a consumer, and that happens in your home and it happens in your office. So the same bad behavior, lack of consumer education, only makes the problem worse. So we really want, this is where it'd be great for Department of Energy to be a true partner, instead of working on telling you about buying the latest and greatest efficient piece of equipment. If they were telling you about how to read the label on your piece of equipment and understand, these systems aren't like a washing machine or a dryer where you get that beautiful Energy Star label. And for the most part, that's pretty accurate. That doesn't mean squat when it comes to HVAC. You've got to know that. You need to know when your system was kind of the born date of it. You can assume your installation if you didn't know that, if you're moving into a house. Also, if you're even a renter looking at this, you need to know that if you're going into a place and you may have not the greatest relationship with your landlord, or even if you do, you can't get equipment right now. What's their plan for taking care of you, whether it's your cooling needs or your heating needs, of when that piece of equipment goes out? And then get back to what I said, average lifespan of equipment now is 10 to 12 years, where it used to be 15 plus. So if your system's out and you're, where I am right now, joining you from Little Rock, Arkansas, it's actually stormy today, but it's already in the 90s here. I don't want to be out HVAC and, them giving me excuses they can't get equipment or any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to be part of that. So, as a renter, you need to be educated too on it.
And you do bring up a really good point of, if you're a renter and let's say you rent, but you're responsible for the utilities. Oh. And if you don't have a properly sized system, or if it's not, energy efficient, whatever it is, there's so many different pieces to it.
Well, ask about their service and maintenance. That's to me even more telling than anything. Even if you're in an apartment building, what's their service and maintenance plan? How many times do they have? Do they, do you know where the air filter is? Or someone change it for you in your house? And are you have shared air with the rest of the building to know that? Deb, I know some of your, challenges you've had of some of your, places that you've lived, but it's, these are, again, and now with COVID bringing, air quality into the spotlight, these are questions that consumers should ask. They should ask that as a renter. You should ask it when you're going in to buy a house. It's a great negotiating point, because the average HVAC system that was, $5,000 is now $7,000. And for long, it's going to be $10,000, because guess what? The consumer is going to pay for it. Because there's no, again, we talk about comfort, but you get into the, what we've learned from COVID is, one of the things ACCA really worked on, we're proud of. We worked to make sure that air conditioning contractors got recognized as essential, and they weren't before. So that was, that was done in several ways through the help of a lot of our members weighing in. Frankly, it was done over beers at my neighbor's pool back there in Alexandria, Virginia. He was over cybersecurity during the Trump administration, and Chris talked to him about his server farms and tried to explain to him how all that works and how HVAC is essential for keeping those going. Your HVAC goes out, your server farms shut down because that. So he kind of got it then, and we, helped leverage that knowledge to get HVAC, and then the states followed that lead for us. But it was, that's telling of this industry and how much opportunity we have from a workforce standpoint to be able to leverage that. And these people didn't miss a beat. If they were willing and able to work and get their hands on equipment, they had worked throughout all of COVID, while the rest of the world was shut down and worried about how they were going to pay their bills. These people worried about too much work to have, which is, I think, a great indicator for the opportunities in this industry.
And about that, so this is like my concluding part. I was just gonna thank you for your time, but my final question is like, what advice do you have for me as like a graduate of high school?
Go to work, get out there. What do you want to do? Follow that, but know that there's opportunities. Whether it's with a heating and air conditioning contractor, but I gotta go. This past weekend, we were down in my wife's home state of Louisiana and visiting the church that she grew up in and her parents grew up in, and we got married in. And they're about to close their doors. They'd merged with another church, but they had all these students up that ranged in age. I think that the youngest was 6 years old, and they were recognizing them and giving them a free Happy Meal and a $5 bill and a certificate, but recognizing them for each of them to share their story about what they wanted to do and how well they'd done in school, which I thought was really neat. But no one had on their list any of this kind of stuff. Or people wanted to be a doctor or even a nurse, and a young man wanted to be a policeman. No one had any of these jobs, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electrical, on their radar. And that's unfortunate, because it's something that you can do in any city you want to go to and stay there. So if you want to be by family, you have an opportunity. If you want to move somewhere else, it's kind of what I used to think of for nursing, and I think that's gotten more challenging. But this isn't. This industry has got those doors open and ready to welcome. And sadly, people think of it as jobs for men, and that's not the case. I know a lot of our folks are targeting, thinking of the working mom, how they could leverage the time that they have and want those hours of someone that could, be a fantastic addition to their team. So it doesn't matter, whether it's a man or a woman. There's an opportunity for you in this industry. And an opportunity to learn and grow and, even start your own business with the skills that you develop. But I will say, back to the education side of stuff, what we have learned from our members over the years is that the technical skills are invaluable, but the business skills are too. So no matter what you want to go and do, learn and get the skills and surround yourself with people, that you view as, who you want to be when you grow up. So I'd say that for you personally. Obviously you got a great one in Deb, but have people you surround yourself with, and, do an internship, work for them, do whatever and be entrepreneurial. I mean, that's, I kind of talk about how I kind of got my started or my formal start in kind of politics. But I mean, that was for me stopping a congressman on the street and introducing myself, and then, offering to work for free and cleaning their closet and him noticing. And next thing I know, I'm hired. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah. They had a supply closet that was, made my, made me crazy, kind of like stuff in our office used to. And I like everything in order and labeled and stuff like that. And don't look at my desk right now, but that was kind of how I made my mark. And he and the chief of staff noticed, and next thing I know, I'm hired, and I'm getting credit for college. I'd already been working all through high school doing other internships, but that was more about the money than experience. But this was truly in my field, and I got, I'm taken to college as my show and tell, a member of Congress, because he and I had the same schedule. I went to school 2 days a week. He'd ride with me. I'd drop him off before school on Tuesday, and I'd pick him up Thursday night when I got out, and I was working every other day during the week for him. So I went to school from, 9 in the morning till 9 at night on 2 days a week, and, worked 60 to 80 hours of those other days.
So that actually concludes all the questions.
All right.
Yeah. So again, thanks for your time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Nice
Not
to
every
meet
day
you.
you get the opportunity to interview a CEO of a company, but
there's a whole lot of people that make what happens at ACCA possible, and you're hooked up with a good one there with Deb.
I wish that
leverage her.
I wish that I discovered HVAC a lot earlier in my career. I really do.